An exclusive report reveals that one of Mark Carney's daughters attended the controversial Tavistock transgender clinic for therapy.
The Alberta government said it's hoping to put more protections in place for free speech on university campuses.
A new study shows that by 2023, Canada was taking in 5 times as many immigrants than the number of houses being constructed. Hello Canada, it's Tuesday, March 18th, and this is the True North Daily Brief. I'm Cosmin, Dzsurdzsa.
And I'm Geoff Knight.
We've got you covered with all the news you need to know. Let's discuss the top stories of the day and the True North exclusives you won't hear anywhere else. Mark Carney used his teenage daughter Cleo, a first-year Harvard student, to introduce him at the recent Liberal convention where party members voted to make him the prime minister. But Cleo isn't Carney's only daughter. Carney and his wife, Diana Fox, have 4 daughters, and the eldest, 24, is a prolific writer and trans activist. In the alternative magazine Authenticity, Sasha Carney penned an essay in April 2020 called Mumsnet and Transmasculine Childhood. In the essay, Sasha talks about her experiences of feeling confused about her gender as a teenager and receiving treatment at the discredited Tavistock Gender Clinic in London, England. The Carney family moved from Ottawa, Canada to London in 2013 so that Carney could become the governor of the Bank of England. According to an interview she gave for the Ottawa publication APT 613, Sasha, then Sophia, was 13 years old when the family relocated. Records show she moved back to North America to attend Yale University in 2017. Sasha describes how one of her friends tried to game the system in order to get, quote, top surgery, a double incision mastectomy meant to masculinize young gender-confused women. The essay reads, quote, I felt a fierce surge of jealousy every time I walked into the Tavistock for therapy and saw patients turn left towards the medical spaces I didn't feel trans enough to enter. The Tavistock Clinic was ultimately shut down after years of controversy surrounding its treatment methods, which critics say amounted to medical experiments on children. Tavistock's child transitioning practice shuttered its doors in April 2024 after reporters revealed that minors were being rushed into life-altering treatment with few precautions. Ultimately, years of concerns from whistleblowers, clinicians, and detransitioners forced the UK's National Health Service to order the clinic's closure. So, Geoff, some of our listeners might not have heard of the Tavistock Clinic. This was a big thing a few years ago when the closure was first announced. Can you give anybody listening a bit more background on the Tavistock Clinic?
Yeah, sure, Cosmin. The Tavistock Clinic was formerly known as the Gender Identity Development Service in London, and it was the UK's sole gender identity clinic for children, starting in 1989 with a focus on therapy to explore gender distress. Over time, it moved towards medical treatments like puberty blockers, but by the late 2010s, it faced criticism for weak evidence, insufficient mental health support, and hastening kids into irreversible procedures, especially as referrals soared to over 5,000 by 2020 to 2021. The 2022 CAST review exposed these flaws, labeling its approach unsafe and poorly tracked, which led to its closure by the NHS in April 2024, replaced by regional hubs for a more cautious, holistic model. Controversy around Tavistock grew from whistleblowers, ex-staff, and detransitioners who argued it prioritized affirmation over scrutiny, often sidelining complex issues like autism or trauma in its young patients. Its shutdown marked a shift in UK gender care, sparking broader debates on balancing medical intervention with psychological exploration for youth, a conversation still rippling globally as countries reassess similar services today. The Alberta government has made it clear that it does not want post-secondary institutions following the example set by UBC Okanagan's Student Union, which recently banned a conservative club from forming on campus before reversing the decision. Alberta's Ministry of Advanced Education established an expert panel to review post-secondary school funding and competitiveness. While the panel's report, due in late 2025, aims to make recommendations addressing the impacts of federal immigration policies, the cost of administrative and regulatory burdens on post-secondary institutions, and more, it does not include a pledge to look into student union reform. The panel was announced on December 2024. In March 2025, the UBC Okanagan Student Union faced serious backlash for banning a conservative club, despite a liberal campus club operating freely for years. The student union justified banning the club by claiming the Conservative Party's views would make Black and LGBT students feel unwelcome. After public pushback, the union reversed its decision, deciding to ratify the club. Alberta's Minister of Advanced Education, Rajan Sawhney, told True North this is not the culture her ministry supports. Alberta's United Conservative Party required all 26 publicly funded post-secondary institutions to endorse the Chicago Principles in 2019, a set of guidelines on free expression and academic freedom. Starting last fall, institutions have been required to report their free speech policies, canceled events, and free speech-related complaints to the provincial government. While Alberta Premier Danielle Smith said she hadn't seen student unions as a problem, she told journalist Kian Bexty that she'd raised the concern with the Advanced Education Minister. Cosmin, how are Alberta universities responding to threats against free speech on campus?
Yeah, Geoff. So we've actually seen a shift in particular against diversity, equity, inclusion measures. At least the University of Alberta. President Bill Flanagan earlier this year in January put out an op-ed in the Edmonton Journal explaining how the university was moving away from implementing DEI measures, partially changing the approach to what he called access, community, and belonging, with a concentration on intellectual freedom. So across not only the education sector, but also the private sector, companies as well have sort of shifted away from this ideology. And DEI is a huge part of what has happened in terms of the silencing of critics and the chill on free speech, especially on campuses. Part of the different things we've seen unfold over the last few years go hand in hand with how universities wholesale adopted this ideology and started to implement it through various policies, setting up different administrative tribunals within their own structures to go after people who strayed or were seen as having off the beaten path views. So absolutely, there has been quite a shift, and there are individual universities that are taking steps on their own part to address this beyond what the Alberta government has done by mandating the respect of those Chicago principles. Immigration has long exceeded Canada's housing supply for years, but by 2023, the ratio surged to 5 immigrants for every new home under construction. According to a new study from the Canadian think tank, the Aristotle Foundation, from 2000 to 2015, housing starts and immigration levels were relatively balanced. However, in 2014, the ratio jumped to 2 to 1 and has continued to rise. The study reads, quote, "The total number of immigrants residing in Canada, the total stock of immigrants rose from 643,853 people, or 2.1% of Canada's population in 2000, to over 3.6 million in 2023, or 9.1% of the population that year. This dramatic increase occurred in tandem with the country's changing housing landscape. In 2000, 62% of newly constructed dwellings were single detached homes, which dropped to just 32% by 2022. By 2022, 52% of all home construction was being erected in the form of apartments, up from just over 20% in 2000. According to study author Mark Milke, immigration was done decently under former Prime Minister Stephen Harper's government because, quote, "they thought through how to do it properly." Milke said the current Liberal government wanted to transform the country for their own political benefit without considering the consequences. Geoff, what are housing completions looking like now? Are they catching up to the population yet?
Well, right now, Canada's housing completions have not yet caught up to its rapidly growing population, driven largely by immigration. In 2023, the country hit a record of approximately 242,000 net housing completions, with a continued upward trend into 2024, particularly in apartment construction in major cities like Toronto and Calgary. Despite this, population growth has outpaced housing supply, with over 1 million new residents in 2023 alone, and an estimated 770,000 more in 2024. Projections suggest completions might reach around 255,000 units in 2024, but this falls short of the 400,000 to 483,000 units needed annually to match demographic demand and address the existing shortfall. The gap between housing completions and population growth remains a pressing issue. While housing starts increased by 2% in 2024, totaling about 68,639 units in the first half of the year across key metropolitan areas, the per capita housing supply continues to lag. Federal efforts to boost rental construction have spurred some progress, but the scale of population increase, still heavily influenced by immigration, means the ratio of new residents to new homes remains unbalanced. Although slightly less severe than the 5-to-1 peak in 2023, the housing crisis still persists, with affordability challenges likely to continue unless construction accelerates significantly or population growth slows. Full resolution could take a decade without major policy shifts.
That's it for today, folks. Thanks for tuning in. You can stay on top of new episodes every weekday by subscribing to the Daily Brief on iTunes and Spotify. Also, while you're at it, make sure to hit us with a 5-star rating and please leave a review.